6 seconds. That's all it took for a woman to point a loaded gun at my 8-year-old son's face. She fired, missed, smiled. While the crowd froze, I shattered her jaw with her own pistol, forced her to crawl through the shards of her pride, and made sure every camera saw the monster behind the HOA pearls. This is what happens when you threaten my child. But I wasn't done when she started crying. I was just getting to the part she'll never live down. Let me take you back just 6 seconds before everything went to hell over a chocolate bar. His hand brushed the Hershey's wrapper, still sticky from the last kid who dared touch it. I didn't know that wrapper would cost us both a piece of our childhood. We were in the HA-owned supermarket. Shiny floors, cold air, that artificial cleanliness that always made me uneasy. My son, just 8 years old, walked beside me in his hoodie and worn sneakers, holding my hand loosely. We had just come from school. He was still humming some song from class. Then he saw it, the chocolate aisle. He didn't bolt, didn't scream. He just let go of my hand and took a few quiet steps forward, drawn by the glimmer of silver wrappers stacked neatly in rows. He stopped in front of the shelf, eyes wide, the way kids look at things that feel too good to be real. His hand reached up, a slow, careful motion, and touched a Hershey's bar. That was it, just a touch. I smiled. Then my phone buzzed. A quick message from work. ETA report needed. I glanced down for what couldn't have been more than 6 seconds. My fingers swiped across the screen, heart not racing, mind not alert, and when I looked up, he was gone. The chocolate bar lay crooked on the shelf like someone had swatted it sideways. The space he had occupied was empty. No voice, no laughter, just nothing. Then came a sound, a shout, sharp and grating, rising from the far end of the aisle. Hey, you drop it now. My heart slammed into my ribs. There's a kind of silence that follows gunfire even before it begins. A pull in the air, a drop in pressure. You feel it in your teeth. I didn't see the gun yet, didn't know who was yelling. But I started walking fast, then running. I didn't know that those 6 seconds would change everything, that I was about to watch my son face the barrel of a gun for holding a piece of chocolate. I turned the corner just as the shouting sharpened, and that's when I saw her. Karen Whitmore, tall, bleach blonde, draped in a white faux fur coat and pearls far too large to be real. She looked like she'd just walked out of a 1980s courtroom drama, but with the rage of someone who'd ruled this store like a queen, unchecked, unchallenged. And now her fury was directed at my son. He stood there frozen near the candy rack, hands raised instinctively in the air, his small fingers still curled around the edge of the shelf. Karen had already slapped the Hershey's bar out of his hand, and it lay on the floor like some condemned object. Her voice slithered. HOA Rule 34. Thieves don't get second chances, even the small ones. Her finger jabbed at his chest, nail polished the same red as the approved stamps she'd ruined lives with. She loomed over him like a vulture circling prey, yelling at the top of her lungs. My son couldn't speak. His lip quivered. His eyes darted toward me. She didn't notice me yet. This is an HOA-protected store. We don't tolerate filth like you sneaking in and touching things you can't afford. She wasn't just angry. She was enjoying this. Somewhere nearby, a shopper gasped. Another pulled out a phone, but no one moved. No one stepped in. Karen had that kind of power here. Her name signed off community letters, her word treated like law. And then she reached into her designer bag. For a second, I thought she was going to pull out a phone, maybe call security, just wave around some fake badge of authority. But she didn't. She pulled out a matte black handgun, sleek and compact, illegal in this state to carry without a license. She raised it at my son's face without hesitation. Drop to your knees. My blood turned to fire. People screamed. A few ducked behind aisles, but no one got between her and my son. I took 3 steps forward, slow, direct. She still hadn't seen me. She had no idea that the boy she was threatening belonged to me and that I was about to turn her world into ash. She cocked the hammer. That sharp metallic click froze the entire aisle. My son didn't move. He didn't even breathe. His knees buckled, but he didn't fall. He just stood there paralyzed with a gun in his face and no understanding of why. Karen's arm didn't waver. Her voice cut like a knife through every sound around us. Down now, or I swear I'll make an example out of you. I stepped into full view. Put it down. She spun toward me, startled for just a fraction of a second, and then she smirked. Is this your spawn? What kind of father lets their kid wander around stealing? I ignored her words. My eyes were on the gun, my son's terrified face. I took another step forward. She screamed, one more step, and I swear, bang. 3 steps. 2 breaths. 1 choice. Her finger twitched on the trigger. I didn't let her reach 0. The shot rang out like thunder in a chapel. It wasn't a warning. It was domination. The bullet screamed past my son's ear, smashing into the candy shelf behind him. A plastic sign exploded in a spray of shards, bits of metal and cardboard raining down on his head like cruel confetti. He hit the ground, hands over his ears, sobbing without sound. I roared, "Drop the fucking gun." My voice didn't ask. It commanded. Karen took a half step back, startled by the blast of my fury, but her fingers stayed near the trigger. Her eyes wide, wild, unhinged, locked on mine. You think you can threaten me? She spat. I run this community. I protect it from people like you. I clenched my fists, muscles twitching with restraint, my jaw locked so tight I thought it might snap. 23 phones filmed. 0 hands reached out. Their silence was the gasoline. I just lit the match. People were filming now, but still no one moved to help. No one stopped her. My son was still crying, curled up on the floor behind her, dust and plastic flakes in his hair. Karen laughed. Oh, don't worry. I didn't hit him yet. The world went silent in my head. This wasn't HOA protocol. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't some bored suburban tyrant having a bad day. This was evil, and it had just fired a gun at my child. I took one slow step forward. Karen didn't notice my hands curl tighter. She didn't see the way my feet planted with purpose, but she was about to learn something she never expected. You don't aim a weapon at my son and walk away whole. Would you have stepped in before I did, or would you have frozen like everyone else? She was still laughing. That hideous nasal, self-satisfied cackle echoed across the tiled floor, as if she had just done something clever, heroic, even as if firing a gun at a child made her some kind of protector. She never even looked at him again. My son was still on the ground, curled up, shaking, and Karen turned her back on him like he was nothing more than trash on aisle 6. That was the moment I stopped breathing fear. I saw a wine bottle, red vintage, the kind she probably drank while writing HOA violations. I grabbed it. No hesitation. No mercy. She caught the blur of my motion too late. Wait, crack. I didn't know it yet, but the wine soaking her fur would stain deeper than her reputation. By sundown, hashtag HOA Karen would trend in 7 countries. The bottle exploded against her shoulder. Wine and glass showering her like blood from a split skull. She screamed, not in pain, but outrage. You animal! She raised the gun again, shaking now, unsure, stunned that anyone had dared fight back. I closed the distance in a blink. I slammed into her, tackled her hard enough to knock every fake jewel off her wrist. We hit the floor. I pinned her down with the weight of every ounce of rage in my body. I grabbed her wrist and wrenched it hard and sharp. Drop it, she shrieked. The gun clattered to the floor. I didn't stop. I twisted harder until I felt the pop of cartilage and the scream that followed. You threatened a child. You fired at my son. Now you get to feel what helpless tastes like. Her eyes widened, finally catching up to the reality she built with her own filthy hands. Karen had ruled this store, this neighborhood, this system. But on this floor beneath me, she had no throne left to stand on. She gasped like a drowning woman, but she wasn't underwater. She was beneath me. I'd never hit a woman before, but she stopped being human when she aimed at his heartbeat. Her wrist had already given out, twisted and useless. The gun was gone, skittered across the tile like a rat fleeing its nest. But I wasn't finished. Not even close. Karen squirmed beneath my weight. Her pearl necklace snapped in half. Fake stones scattered like the lies she built her life on. Get off me, she shrieked, her voice rasping with rage. I leaned in, breath hot against her ear. You pointed a weapon at a child. You fired that weapon. Now you're going to taste what justice feels like when it doesn't come in paper form. She thrashed, tried to claw at my arm, but her broken wrist betrayed her. I grabbed the back of her hair and slammed her face against the tile once. Not hard enough to kill her, just enough to make the room spin. The crowd gasped. Someone whispered, "Oh my God," but nobody moved. No one helped her, and no one dared stop me. I stood slowly, towering over her crumpled frame. I picked up the gun. It felt wrong in my hand, not because I feared it, but because it had just been used to destroy my son's innocence. Karen moaned behind me, crawling, makeup smeared, her coat stained crimson with wine and blood. I turned to her. You wanted to be the enforcer, the protector of the neighborhood? You wanted power so bad you pointed death at an 8-year-old. She tried to speak. It came out as a sob. Please. I didn't wait. I grabbed her by the collar and dragged her across the floor back to the center aisle. Her heels scraped. Her pride bled out with every inch. Then I dropped the gun on the ground in front of her face. Pick it up. She blinked, confused, shaking. What? Pick it up. Tears rolled down her cheek. I can't my hand. Then crawl past it like the coward you are. She did. On elbows, on knees, shaking, whimpering, mascara streaking down both cheeks. And just before she passed the gun, I planted my boot on it hard and leaned in again. You don't get to touch this again, ever. This doesn't belong to tyrants. Her pearls crunched like bone under my boot. Karen collapsed, face flat on the floor, sobbing into the cold ceramic tile. The silence in the store was louder than the gunshot had been. I turned toward the crowd, phones still filming, eyes wide, some mouths open. No one dared speak. And then I said it, the words that sealed her downfall. This woman pointed a loaded weapon at a child, fired it, and laughed. I looked around. You all saw it. You all let it happen. No one argued. Not a single soul. Karen didn't rule anymore. Not this store, not this community, not even herself. She was just a broken shell in a puddle of everything she tried to bury others with. And I wasn't done yet. She whimpered like a kicked dog, face pressed to the tile, blood smearing in a streak beneath her cheekbone, pearls crunching under her body. Her coat, once blinding white, was soaked through with red wine, sweat, and humiliation. And still, I wasn't finished. I crouched beside her slowly, deliberately, watching her flinch before I even spoke. Tell me, Karen, was it worth it? She didn't answer. Was that one moment of feeling powerful enough for you to aim death at a child? She shivered. Speak. Her voice cracked. I didn't mean to. Don't lie to me. You enjoyed it. I leaned closer. My hand gripped her jaw firm enough to make her gasp. You smiled when he cried. You laughed after pulling the trigger. You barked orders at an 8-year-old like he was your servant. I released her face, letting her collapse back onto the floor. You've ruled this place with threats and paper fines, but now you're just another coward who lost her leash. She tried to push herself up, only for her shattered wrist to buckle beneath her. She screamed again, collapsing in a twisted heap. I didn't offer help. Instead, I picked up her designer handbag, smeared with wine and filth, and emptied it right there on the floor. Lipstick, wallet, HI key cards, and ammunition. I held the bullets in one hand, balanced them. Then, without a word, I turned and scattered them across the floor like dice. This isn't your symbol anymore. It's trash, just like your authority. She stared at them, broken like her. And for the first time, I saw the real Karen. No titles, no HOA seal, no power, just fear. You always made others feel small, I said. You fined a cancer patient for putting out a chair. You had veterans remove flags from their porch. You made children cry at Halloween for wearing the wrong approved colors. And today, you pointed a loaded weapon at my son because he touched a chocolate bar. Silence. Tears rolled down her cheek, but they weren't the kind that cleansed anything. They were rot leaking from inside. I stood over her, fists still clenched. You wanted people to feel powerless. Now it's your turn. I turned to the crowd. Dozens of phones. Some mouths hanging open. Some people crying. One clerk sobbing behind the register. You all watched this happen. Now you'll watch her fall. Karen reached out, tried to touch one of the scattered bullets. I kicked it away. You don't get to hold power anymore. She collapsed again. This time completely, not from pain, but realization. She had lost everything, throne shattered, weapon broken, her name about to be ruined in every courtroom and headline that ever said HOA with pride. And I wasn't even done yet. I stepped back. Karen lay crumpled on the floor, hands trembling, blood smearing across her cheek as she tried pathetically to reclaim the last scraps of control. But there was nothing left to hold on to, and now everyone could see it. Phones hovered in the air like judgment from above. Dozens of shoppers had gathered, faces stunned, lips parted, expressions twisted between disbelief and justice. I looked around the circle, locked eyes with them, then pointed to Karen. This is the woman who ran your HOA. No one moved. The one who fined you for weeds an inch too high. The one who banned porch lights that weren't white balanced. The one who made your kids take down birthday decorations at 7 p.m. sharp. Karen groaned behind me, trying to sit up. I didn't let her. I grabbed her by the back of her wine-soaked coat and dragged her 2 feet forward into the center of the aisle, into the harsh overhead light where she could be seen by everyone. She pulled a loaded gun on my 8-year-old son and fired it. Gasps rippled through the crowd. One woman dropped her phone. A father clutched his daughter closer, but no one interrupted. Karen wheezed, coughed, and tried to lift her head. I was protecting the store. No, I cut her off. You were playing God with a gun in your hand. I turned back to the crowd, and you all saw it. One man, older, stepped forward. I got it on video, clear as day. She aimed it right at the kid. A woman followed, tears in her eyes. She's done this before. Not with a gun, but she's hurt people quietly, legally. Until now, another voice joined in. Then another. The air shifted. Suddenly, Karen wasn't just a villain in this moment. She was the face of every fear, every injustice, every petty abuse they had suffered for years. She looked around, realizing it. Her chest rose and fell in short, panicked gasps. Please, she whimpered. This is being taken out of context. I turned slowly, crouched down to eye level. The context is simple. You pointed a gun at a child. You fired it. And then you laughed. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. That's not policy or procedure. That's sadism. I stood and faced the crowd again. She didn't just break rules. She made herself above them. Now we put her beneath them. I stepped back and let her fall. She collapsed onto her side, choking on shame. Mascara streaked with tears, the smeared remnants of wine and blood clinging to her coat like bruises in fabric form. The phones kept recording. This wasn't just going to be remembered. It was going to be broadcast. And for the first time in her miserable reign, Karen had no HOA board to hide behind, no bylaws to bend, no fine print to twist into a noose for someone else. This time, the noose was public and she had tied it herself. The sirens wailed before we saw the lights. Someone had called them. Maybe one of the staff, maybe a shaken witness, maybe one of the dozens filming. It didn't matter. Justice was coming. And for once, it wasn't wearing a fake HOA badge. Karen tried to lift herself again, trembling on her elbows like a wounded animal. Her breath came in short, shallow gasps. Her coat, once pristine, was stained with blood, wine, sweat, and disgrace. She blinked up at me, mascara streaked like war paint melting under pressure. They won't arrest me, she mumbled, desperate. I was defending the store, the community. I didn't even respond. I didn't need to. The sliding doors flung open. Two officers stormed in, hands on holsters, eyes scanning the chaos. They didn't hesitate. They saw her first. Then they saw me. Then my son, still being held in the arms of a store clerk, safe but wide-eyed, silent, traumatized. Hands visible. Everyone stay back. I lifted mine slowly, calmly. She's the one you want. The younger officer approached Karen. Ma'am, stay where you are. She whimpered. This is a misunderstanding. I'm on the HOA board. HOA security. I had authority to drop the act. I cut her off. Check the security footage or any of the 15 phones pointed at her. She fired a gun at a child. The officer's expression shifted. He looked to the older cop beside him, gave a small nod. Without hesitation, they moved in. Karen Whitmore, you are under arrest for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, unlawful discharge of a firearm in a public space, and endangering a minor. No. Wait. They rolled her onto her stomach. Stop. I didn't mean to. I didn't shoot him. It wasn't real. The click of handcuffs cut through her rambling like a blade. She kicked once, then again, but there was no power left behind her limbs. No teeth in the voice that once silenced entire HOA meetings. They hoisted her up by the arms. Her hair clung to her face in wine-soaked strands. Her coat hung like a costume being ripped from the stage. One of her heels had come off, long lost in the scuffle. You don't know who I am, she spat, struggling. The officer didn't flinch. We know exactly who you are. As they led her out, limping, cuffed, dripping in shame, the crowd stepped aside like parting waves. No one clapped. No one cheered. But the silence held weight. It was justice, heavy, deliberate, real. A woman near the front crossed her arms. About damn time. Another whispered, she fined me $500 for my kid's sidewalk chalk. Guess this one's on the house. I didn't move. I just stood there watching Karen disappear through the sliding doors that once opened only for her to enter and judge. Now they opened to release her into the custody of something she could never manipulate again, the law. And as they vanished beyond the flashing red and blue, I finally looked down at my son. He was staring up at me, quiet but steady. I knelt, placed a hand on his shoulder. She won't hurt anyone else. And for the first time since that gunshot echoed off the candy shelves, he nodded. It didn't take long. By the time I got home that evening, Karen Whitmore's name was already trending. HOA, Karen, chocolate, gun, incident, fired, at child. The video footage, angled from 6 different phones, showed everything. Her face contorted in fury, her voice snarling threats. The gun, the shot, my son's tiny frame collapsing in fear, and finally me slamming her into the floor, dragging her into the light she always used to blind others. It was all there, unedited, undeniable. By midnight, the news channels had latched on. Local HOA president arrested after firing weapon at minor inside grocery store. By morning, national headlines had picked it up. HOA tyrant loses control in grocery store gun incident. And by the third day, Karen Whitmore wasn't just infamous. She was radioactive. Her mugshot hit the front page like a bullet through glass. Eyes swollen, nose slightly off-center. Mascara melted down her cheeks like war paint turned to ruin. Hair tangled and matted from wine and sweat. Her expression wasn't rage. It was ruin. The charges stacked up fast. Aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, child endangerment, illegal discharge of a firearm in a public space, terroristic threats, and every HOA board she'd ever worked with scrambled to distance themselves, issuing public apologies, feigning ignorance. But it was too late. A community petition formed overnight to dissolve her HOA completely. Within 72 hours, it had 8,000 signatures. By the end of the week, the HOA was under formal state investigation for misappropriation of funds, selective enforcement, and civil rights violations. Every house she ever fined, every family she ever humiliated, they came out in waves. And as for me, I didn't speak to the press. I didn't need to. The truth was loud enough. It took my son a few days to speak again. When he did, it was quiet, barely above a whisper, but it was his voice. His. We were sitting in the backyard. The sun had dipped low and the world felt still. He looked up at me and asked, "Why did she do it?" I didn't lie, because some people confuse power with worth. They think if they scare others, it makes them stronger. He stared at the ground. She was shaking when they took her away. I nodded, because deep down, people like her are afraid of being seen for what they really are. He looked up again. You weren't afraid. I smiled, but it wasn't pride. It was pain and love wrapped together. I was terrified, but not for me. A long pause. Then, will she come back? I shook my head. No, son. She won't be coming back. He nodded once, then leaned into my side, resting his head against me like he did before the world taught him what fear looked like. We sat there in silence. Not broken, but healing. Karen fell that day, not just in a courtroom, not just through headlines or hashtags. She fell from the illusion she built of control, of order, of invincibility. And when she fell, the whole country heard it. Because justice isn't quiet. Not when it speaks for a child holding a chocolate bar. Not when the world finally sees the truth for what it is and doesn't look away. There are moments in life that fracture us. Not because we weren't strong, but because we were forced to watch something that shouldn't have happened and couldn't believe it was real. For me, that moment was seeing a gun pointed at my son's face. For him, it was realizing that someone who looked like a neighbor could choose to become his executioner over a candy bar. But what broke me more than the gunshot was the silence that followed. No one moved, no one screamed, no one stopped her. It reminded me that in a world full of bystanders, courage isn't just about stepping up. Courage is about stepping in. And sometimes justice doesn't come from a badge or a robe or a board meeting. Sometimes justice comes from a father who chooses to act before fear becomes permanent in a child's mind. Karen lost her power that day, but more importantly, she lost her illusion. Because no matter how many fines she wrote or lives she micromanaged, power built on fear will always collapse the moment someone stops being afraid. And my son, he found something in that chaos, too. He found the truth that some people weaponize rules not to protect, but to control, and that sometimes the only way to break control is to break the silence. Would you have pulled the trigger? Stopped her? Or just watched? So, if you're watching this and you've been bullied by someone like Karen, someone who used authority to shame, threaten, or break you, this story is for you. Because the moment we stop pretending that abuse is just how the system works, we reclaim more than our rights. We reclaim our dignity. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced someone like Karen, someone who thought they could get away with anything just because no one stood up to them? Comment enough if you've ever stayed silent too long. Or comment I won't freeze if you'd stand up when no one else would. Let's flood this comment section with voices that won't be quiet anymore. And if this story hit you hard, helped you see something clearly, or made you feel seen, like this video, subscribe for more stories that expose what happens when power goes unchecked, and hit that bell icon so you never miss the next fight worth watching.